So I'm sorry, Timoteo. I think I killed you too. You have to reconnect through the link you got from Victoria. Very sorry about that. So please restart if you can see me. Ah, you're back. I'm very sorry. I killed the whole session.
It's good to play, but don't play that much with the system, you know?
Yeah, so I clicked on the red button besides your screen share, so besides your presentation, and then we got this. So let me start sharing my presentation. Let me see where I can easily do like this, and do like this. So I made a kickoff to tell about the program during this session and to know, so people will know what we do with their questions.
Okay.
Before I start the presentation.
Yeah, it's good. Good idea.
Okay. So I guess we're...
So probably in the beginning, shall I be with my image on the screen or shall I leave my image?
I don't know, just to try. Turn your... Yeah, because we cannot remove you from the screen, so you will be there. So
okay.
Whether you turn on your video or not, when I'm presenting, maybe it's better to turn it off, and I will turn it off when you're presenting.
Okay.
We might even announce that so that people know why we're doing that.
Yeah. Anyway, the person will be able to click on the which screen they want to look at. If they click twice on your face or on presentation, they will see that.
Yes. Yes. So they will see my... So Erica, so there's somebody now asking to join. So should we invite her in, or? Let's see. Let's try. We have another 5 minutes. So I clicked on her name. I think Erica was in the room. Sorry, Erica, did I just remove you, or you want to get on stage, or you're just here to watch the video? Okay. So we can see now, Timoteo. Welcome, everybody. We're seeing that people are entering the room. We will be starting in about 4 minutes. So, welcome everybody. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, at least here in Central Europe. Welcome to the session that is co-presented by Timoteo Guimaraes and myself, Arnout Orelio. Before we get into the meat of the session, I'd like to tell you how this session will work. The session will be from now till 5 o'clock. I'm introducing now the session. I will start off with my presentation and will give you like a 5-minute Q&A on this particular presentation. And following suit, there will be the presentation of Timoteo. He will have another 5 minutes to go into detail with his presentation. And afterwards, we're going up to 5 with a group discussion. That means that everybody who wants to join us on stage can do so. And we will have a discussion on the topic we had our presentations about, or anything that the group wants to learn connected to that. If you have a question, there are some rules to make it easier to answer them. The first rule is that during the presentations, we don't take questions. We take them after the presentation. And if you have a question, please put it in capitals in the chat so we can distinguish the questions from other remarks like telling who you are, etc. And share your audio and video if you like to be on stage, or if either Timoteo or me invites you on stage. This will be available during the group discussions. So then your video and audio will be visible and hearable like ours. So thank you very much for all being here. And I will kick off this session. The title of my session will be Flexibility and Operational Excellence, Applying Lessons Learned from the Current Health Crisis, which we're all around the world in it, since it's a pandemic. But before I go into detail, maybe just some information about me, who I am. Well, I'm living with my wife and 3 sons in Helmond, in the south of the Netherlands. And I'm specialized in leadership and process improvement. And 15 years ago, I started to focus on healthcare. And why did I do that? Because, well, with 3 sons, sometimes you visit the hospital. And in my experience, much could be improved there. Thus far, I trained, coached, and mentored over 1,000 leaders and professionals in healthcare and beyond. And I wrote 2 books about it, 2 in Dutch and 1 in English. So you are in a crisis. Now what? Well, don't just start working harder. You get overburdened and your problems won't get solved. Don't initiate work groups, task forces, projects, programs to solve your issues. These are bureaucratic measures. They will slow you down. And third, but not least, don't have expert staff do the work for you to avoid ideas that won't work or have little commitment from frontline staff. What should you do in a crisis? Like, for instance, the COVID-19 epidemic. Well, let's see what happened in healthcare, at least in the Netherlands, during this crisis. Things that worked. They put a team of care providers in the lead, not relying on experts or administrators. Mostly multidisciplinary. That means that doctors and nurses were all working together for one goal. That goal was helping patients. So they got everybody to focus on one thing. They made a clear plan of action, executed that plan while learning and adjusting every day, especially this last bit, learning and adjusting every day is what takes you through a crisis. However, the tricky part of improving and getting results while in a crisis, figuring out a way to change fast, but still benefit all involved. So do things that not only are good for patients, but are also safe and good for your staff and are also not killing the budget. Figuring out what to do when you hit roadblocks, because you're in a situation that you have never met before. So you will encounter problems that might be completely new. You need to find out how to lead in a way that engages others and builds commitment from the start. And most importantly, have the discipline and the tenacity to take action and learn every day. So what does this mean for your approach to achieving excellence in times of crisis? How to overcome these tricky parts? How to change your way you approach improvement and getting results? Let's examine the approach I took together with Danielle, a nurse team leader, who had her own crisis. They had medication errors, which endangered the situation for their patients. Before changing her approach, her problems would have been solved only temporarily, so that they would occur again. Been left to other departments, discussed at team meetings only once every 6 weeks, and therefore taken a long time to implement solutions or not being solved at all. We created the daily improvement system to make sure that every problem that employees or clients run into, they write it on a board. They discuss, analyze, and solve the problems together on a daily basis. They implement on average 2 improvements per week per group. And the result was that employees felt much more engaged. The team leader now had time for structural issues, and the team meetings ran way smoother. And the final result was that they went from 9 to 1 medication error per quarter, even being 0 in 2 out of the 3 months. So now the question is, what do you think when you hear this? Maybe it poses questions or it gives you ideas. Please let me know in the chat or ask to be invited on stage to post your question if you have any, considering this short presentation just now. So, and if there's no questions, it's maybe you can then tell me in the chat, answer the question, okay, what is the word or the feeling or the thing you think now after this presentation? Maybe you can put that in the chat. Agile, thank you, Maria. Anyone else? Maybe Peter? So, well, thank you for your attention. And since there are not yet any questions, I will hand over my presentation to Timoteo, just to give us some leeway so he can put up his presentation and I will take mine off. Timoteo, go ahead.
Thank you, Arnaut. Thanks for sharing your
yes.
earlier presentation. Very, very good to see.
Okay.
I will try to be at the same level.
Okay, well, thank you. And I hope that because my presentation was maybe a bit on the theoretical side, and now we're going to find out what it actually means in practice if you want to steer a crisis when you're in business. So thank you for your presentation, Orelio.
Sure, thank you. So I hope that everyone can have access now to the presentation on your screen. Okay, very well. So let me start by introducing the topic. As you are aware, we are here today to discuss innovation, unleashing innovation, specifically in the operational excellence in the context of crisis. The crisis is coming from different directions: healthcare crisis, economic crisis, personal crisis. Today, I want to focus more on the corporate or business side of the crisis, but more importantly, what opportunities and what is the role of innovation and operational excellence. So to address that, I'm looking at 4 topics I would like to discuss with you. First, an introduction of myself and my current challenge, professionally speaking. Secondly, I would like to do a quick review of fundamental concepts that, in my opinion, are very important for contextualization of this discussion. After, I would like to share with you a recent, and I'm calling it Unleashed Innovation, to play with the title of our conference, to share with you some of the projects or the challenges that I'm working at the moment. And after that, just a conclusion and wrap up with the key takeaways. Okay, let me start with a personal introduction first. So I'm originally Portuguese, from the north, Porto. I'm currently living in France, close to the border with Switzerland and Germany, and I work in Switzerland. Before COVID, I was traveling more than 80% of my time, so I live 5 minutes away from very good airports. Currently, the situation has changed, and I believe you are experiencing very similar situations in terms of travel restrictions. Hopefully now we will have a few more options. But anyway, that's me. So I'm originally from Portugal, where I graduated as an engineer, industrial engineer. After that, I started working in manufacturing and consumer goods on an operational excellence program in the UK. That was my first start. And after that, I worked in different companies, both on the corporate side, but also on the consulting side. And on the screen, you see some of the companies I've either worked directly as an employee or serving under the scope of a consulting service. So as I mentioned, I'm an engineer. I think it's particularly interesting to mention in this forum that I am also Six Sigma Black Belt certified. But, well, let's go to the next topic, which would be the introduction of my company. Unilabs is my employer. Unilabs is the leading medical diagnostic player in Europe. This is a market that has suffered massive consolidation in the last years, and the trend is to continue. So maybe you are our customers, but we are operating under different brands depending on the geographies. This is quite common. But just to give you a few numbers, so what are we doing exactly? So every time you have a test prescribed from a doctor to see your blood cholesterol or glucose or any other biological parameter, that's usually coming towards our operations, and we process those samples and we provide the results. That's one part of the business. The other one is imaging or radiology, and 2 other also relevant, pathology and genetics. Adding a few numbers, so we are operating in 17 countries. We are doing every minute 3 medical tests across the 17 countries. We have a network of 250 labs, 150 imaging units, for a total of 13,000 employees. Okay, in terms of the concepts, and I will try to be very brief on this part, but I believe it's really important just to revisit with you. Value creation. What is value creation? I found this definition very interesting from Jack Hughes in our Harvard Business Review. He says that value creation in the future depends on the economies of creativity, mass customization, new product or service, but also solving problems of the clients and giving the service or the product in a different way. So typically this goes beyond what many times we think in terms of operational excellence, like doing a SMED or a 5S in a factory line. This clearly is part of it, but it's just one part of a much bigger role that all of us professionals in innovation and operational excellence play in the world today. Second, innovation. It's just a funny cartoon that you can see on your screen. So innovation arrives and we can either join it, we can even push it forwards or be left behind. So Amazon is just a perfect example of how can I provide, essentially deliver the same product, but in a totally different way. So is innovation focused on the process, not necessarily on the product, but very valuable, as you can see by the stock market exchange. Operational excellence, another topic that is very dear to me. And innovation, value creation, operational excellence, in my mind, to be clear, they are kind of synonyms, in my opinion. Value creation is nothing less, and I go back to my engineering times, I like equations, is nothing less than the willingness to pay from our customers minus the cost. That is the value creation. So we can be operational excellent, not only if we reduce cost, but also if we provide a service or a product in a different way, and then we can improve the willingness to pay. Also, operational excellence is not a set of tools. It's also a set of tools, but more importantly is the execution of a business strategy more consistently and reliable than the competition. So clearly putting at the heart of the definition the business overall, the strategy, and the competitors in the market. Finally, one last note about transformation and change. So successful transformation, and I particularly like this framework, relies on three elements. To have a success in the transformation, any of the three elements must be there. And particularly now, I guess many of you, at least I speak for myself, we have one of the elements there, the environment. So if the environment is promoting or requiring a change, that will speed things faster. I'm sure you relate to that. But also we need an organization that is capable and has the resources. But also this requires that we have a strategy that is clear, defined across the organization. Okay, let me share with you my experience at Unilabs, particularly in this moment of COVID-19. Typically, people talk to me and say, oh, this must be brilliant times for healthcare. All the vaccine efforts, all the medicines and so on. Typically, people are thinking of healthcare as pharma. Pharma is only 15% of the healthcare space. Many hospitals, many doctor practices, many services have stopped during the lockdown. Elective procedures, so surgeries that are not urgent, oncological procedures, many of the chronic diseases treatments, and the entire space of the healthcare to serve these people has been in standby. As a result, many hospitals are bankrupting. Just to give you an example, at that point in USA in the last 3 months, 40 hospitals have filed for bankruptcy. That's mainly because all the non-urgent service has been postponed, canceled, suspended, and there is no way to keep operations running. So also from our side, we experienced a huge hit with the COVID-19. We have some countries, out of the 17, some of our countries lost revenues up to 80% overnight. So this creates an environment where suddenly it fosters change, it fosters innovation, more than the normal time. And just to give you let's go to the process mapping, which is very familiar for you, I'm sure. What would be the typical process map for us? So you or me, I go to the doctor, to the GP, to the hospital. He asks me to check my blood or any other parameter. He prescribes something. I collect my sample, could be blood or any biological fluid, and then it's sent to the lab. We do, Unilabs, we do the production. We outsource that part of the supply chain for the healthcare system, and then we provide the results. That will help doctors to take decisions. So this is our typical way of doing business. Currently, many companies, and I'm sure many of you are having the same challenges. How can I get people in the office again? How can I get people in the hotel again or in the plane again? So all this in the school. So all these things are leading to many unanswered needs at the moment for testing solutions for COVID-19. So how can I make sure that I'm working in a safe environment? And responding to that, we have been working on a completely new way of doing business. We are directing and promoting a B2B offer to many organizations. And now suddenly the process is different. We have to handle the test request and to make sure we are asking those tests when it's really needed, typically through a medical questionnaire that we put in place with companies, occupational health, and other players. Then, of course, the sample collection. Where are the people going? So we are creating lots of infrastructure to make that happen, and I will share with you a couple of nice examples afterwards. After, we need to, of course, have the lab capacity and processes oriented for this different way of doing business, which has impact on software, on processes and procedures. The logistics, of course, are also an important part. And finally, the result delivery. Instead of going to the national healthcare system, we now have to give this to individual persons in the context of digitalization. So just to give you a little bit of flavor of what's going on right now. So this is leading to this B2B offer on COVID-19 that we are doing, targeting corporations, organizations, conferences, everything that you can imagine to make sure that we have a healthier environment to work, to live, but also a faster recovery of the economy. Typically, we are doing 3 programs, and this is just a curiosity: the screening program, monitoring program, and regular screening. Let's say that one factory needs to screen every people in the factory to know if they have the infection or not. That's a typical example. Monitoring, we have a medical protocol in place that will identify symptomatic people that were at risk of exposure, and then there is a lab solution to get the samples and process and get the results on these people. And thirdly, a regular program. This is a more intensive. For example, we are doing this with the football leagues and other interesting settings I will show you just shortly. And at the end of the day, what we are trying and what the companies are trying is to reduce the risk. And it's very important that we are aware that the risk will always be there. It's just we need to define how much of risk we want to have. Okay, this is technical. There are 2 tests. There is the swab test, nose or throat, and then if you have the virus or not. The serology test hopefully will give us immunity insights. At the moment, it can only scientifically respond if you have been exposed to the virus or not. Immunity is still not proved, scientifically speaking. But those are the 2 most common tests that we are doing and the companies are looking for. Let me share with you some interesting examples. So how do we do the collection? You remember, typically people go to the hospital or GP. Suddenly we don't know how to do this, So we were actually the first company in Europe to set up a drive-through model that was started in South Korea with very success. We were the first company doing it in Europe. Nowadays, we have more than 100 drive-throughs across Europe. Another interesting example is the sports. One interesting example is the project we have with the Portuguese League, where we are testing the players with a very strict protocol to make sure they can play or not. So every game they are tested in advance to make sure that happens. And now it's involving referees, the advertisement personnel that goes to the website, but also the TV reporters and so on. So the entire and the families of the players and the staff to make sure the environment is safe and we can continue life in the new normal. Another interesting example is the media, the soap operas or the TV shows where we are partnering with some, in some countries, with this type of companies to make sure they can continue operating and we can have entertainment on TV. Last but not the least, and this is particularly dear to me, this is still pre-official, we'll use this expression, but UAE is taking the lead on reopening the traveling, and we are working with that solution. We are part of the solution, and I'm proud to say that we are one of the strategic partners that will make this project possible in Europe. In a brief note, if you want to visit UAE, you need to be COVID-free, so then you need to request for a certificate, and after that you are able to fly. So this is things that are part of the new normal and that require value creation, operational excellence, innovation to make these things happen. This is my last slide. So my key takeaways, my key message, and hopefully, and I'm looking forward for the discussions that we are going to have after this. My only wish here today is to inspire you to do, and I'm sure you are doing a lot of innovation and operational excellence and value creation, but these are my 3 key takeaways. First, value creation is the goal. Don't put tools ahead of the goal. A process mapping or 5S. First, we need to think in terms of the value creation. Second point, innovation and operational excellence are not less than execution of a strategy in a more competitive way than the other players in the market, with more reliability and more consistency. Lastly, successful transformation requires 3 elements: the environment, the organization, and the strategy. Well, that's all for me. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and I'm looking forward now for the discussions.
So first of all, anyone who has a particular question about the content of Timoteo's presentation, please come forward, either share your audio and video or type your question in the chat. And if not, then I propose to start the group discussion with a question. Okay, so now we presented how to approach this this particular crisis. So how did this crisis affect your innovation agenda? And since we're with a small group here, we might even do the discussion in the whole group. If you like so, if you rather watch and join via the chat, you're also welcome. So I'm very curious, the people who are in the audience, how did this crisis affect your innovation agenda? Did it kill it, or did it speed it up, or you don't know yet? Or please type in the chat or come forward to the by sharing your video or audio. Then we get you on stage. So, well, I'm very curious because we have a a large audience, I'm very curious how you perceiving this pandemic and how it changed your business or maybe just your work. And what approach did you take and what kind of lessons from operational excellence or any other improvement principles did you use to get through it? Please let me know. And as long as there's no questions from the audience, I have one for Timoteo, because you talked about your key takeaways, but maybe you can tell a bit what was the personal change for you?
Yeah.
Because we saw how your business process changed, but what changed for you personally?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And to give you a fair answer, the example I'm going to give is not a result only of the COVID-19. It's, again, if we go back to this framework, it's kind of the environment pushing it forward, but it was happening with me before. So most of my life, I've been working in corporate innovation, operational excellence. And many times, very often, the focus on cost reduction and profit. At least most of the experiences I have the very, very pragmatic focus on that. And that's not wrong, but sometimes, and value creation is a function of increasing willingness to pay. If we think in terms of the coffee, just to give you an example, the coffee, if you buy it in a bag, the beans, you will pay a price that is maybe 10 times, 20 times cheaper than if you buy the kilo on the Nespresso capsule. So how can I deliver the same thing or in a different way and increase the willingness to pay? And many times what I see, and my experience, and I see that very often in the operational excellence environment, that there is a very focused process of cost, which is actually limiting our skills, our capability. So, and then also it changes the way you face a problem. So currently, as we are trying to do things we have never done, the processes are not perfect. So suddenly you go from, oh, the process needs to be Six Sigma, to maybe Two Sigma is fantastic because it will increase the willingness to pay in such a way. And then later, of course, if we have the cost in mind, it's good, but later we can improve from there. So that would be my personal, so to allow
experience.
mistakes, to allow errors while improving the other part of the equation.
Okay. Yeah, so Maria is also telling us that for her, the overall adoption of digital communication sped up. Yeah, I really recognize that because MS Teams, but Zoom, I gave a webinar last Tuesday for the first time. And well, like this hop-in platform, we're now in a conference simulating all what you normally would have in a conference, even the networking. You can chat with people and browse and look around. Yes. So, and saved a lot of, yes. Are you willing to come off stage to maybe tell a bit more, Maria, or? Seems like you're at least having a lot of experience. Sorry, I'm in open space. Oh, no worries. In the office. Yes, I understand completely. Yes, a bit loud here. Okay, no worries. Thank you so much for your input. Anyone else who likes to discuss or maybe deliberate or have a dialogue about what it means when you're in a crisis? And we're back in the office first day. Oh, wow. Yes. So,
with or without mask?
Yes. So what I find interesting is that apparently we need something to force us to change. Now it's COVID-19 and suddenly we're all going into digital solutions where we had a lot of resistance before that to do that. So maybe somebody has an idea about how we can create crisis without having actually one.
The burning platform, some people call it.
Yeah, or for instance, yes, so anybody an idea? Somebody in the audience who makes how to create a burning platform, or maybe do the opposite? I tend to create a gap between the ideal and what we're doing now. So suddenly what we're doing now is not that good. So maybe that's a way to do it, or is somebody else a good idea about how we can create, I would call it creative tension. So we are, well, motivated to move. Maybe without burning, actually.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
So what would be your answer? What works for you?
I would wait. I would encourage the rest of the participants to answer before me.
Yes.
I can, okay. But I suggest we just give a second.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, I can also. So I think that's a very good point. And at the moment, we are living a crisis that goes all over the place. So many people, there is this digitalization, the teams. If you are in a house with a family and kids, it's really, suddenly you are in a personal crisis, because of this. So this crisis has gone everywhere. So if we step back for a normal situation, there are mini crises that we have in some aspects of life that we can use as an opportunity to introduce some changes.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. No response yet. So everybody's still, I don't know. I hope that they're virtually on our lips, just listening to whatever we think about it. We're just us two. What I feel is for operational excellence in a crisis or not, but challenging the status quo is very difficult for many people, or because they not easily tend to do that. Many people are happy. The best way to kill an operational excellence trajectory, or lean, or Six Sigma, or how everybody's calling it, is by thinking that you're there. So how can we make change like a continuous thing? That would be of my interest. What can you do as a leader or as an individual in your company to make improvement a continuous thing? Anyone in the audience having an idea or suggestion, just put it in the chat. And I'm very curious what you're doing, so what we can learn from each other here. And if you like to have more like a group discussion, we can organize that where we have enough. We can have up to 10 people on stage. So if you're in a situation where you can actually share your screen and your sound, unlike Maria, then most welcome just to join us. Okay, Maria says, yeah, strong link to the profit and loss statements. Yes, so that we can actually see how it's helping us or helping the ones who are looking at the profit and loss statement, not necessarily the people who are doing the work.
Yeah,
always.
That's a very good point. The P&L link.
Yeah,
but it can go both ways.
Yeah.
So if it's
Exactly.
let's say if it's a kind of innovation or operational excellence that is increasing the pie, let's call it like this, it's great news for everyone. But sometimes it's hard cash reduced. And that could be, so from a management perspective, it's still important because you still keep the sponsorship. But then, and this is a question for Maria, how would you keep the people engaged? Because that's the part of the problem in the beginning. How can I keep the people engaged and motivated and have this part of the daily or our DNA, our way of working? How do you handle that connection with the P&L when there is bad news, keeping people involved and engaged? Arnold, do you want to try while Maria is typing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it starts with recognition of maybe the different interests of maybe the executive team versus the shop floor people. And I think you made a very good point into the fact that the goal. So if you want to continuously improve, you have to get rid of money making as the goal. Money is a prerequisite to continue your business, but it's not the goal. You said value creation is the goal. And value creation is both says something about money, but it also says something about craftsmanship, because you can only provide value if you do something of value. And of course, everybody in the company likes to be of value. So if you take value as the center point of your objectives and you translate it for people in actual work that clients and customers like, and you translate it for the executive team into bottom and top line, then you have joined their interests. I think that would be very important. Yeah. If you don't join their interest, well, yeah, then that's a big problem. And Maria says, well, if we don't save, we don't invest. Yes, of course, we have to make money because we need the money to invest so we can continue. But the only problem with many companies investing is that they take traditional accounting measures to judge their investments. And that means that you don't invest in people because people are just expenses, they're costs, whereas if you invest in a machine, you put it on the balance sheet. And that's a very big difference. Even if you invest in inventory, you put it on the balance sheet. Whereas if you invest in people, you should better put that on the balance sheet, because people are the only ones, if you invest in them, their value increases. So you are, Timoteo, are worth more because of your experience and what you have done and where you have been and what you learned. You're worth more now than 20 years ago. And that's because you either have invested in yourself or your organization invested in you. So I think that would be the great paradigm shift. That investment in people is the actual key to the growth of both those people as well as your business and the company. So
yeah,
how do you think about that?
I think that makes sense. And so going back and just to increase the controversy so we can keep the discussion more interesting.
Yes, sure.
Some organizations, what they are doing is actually the opposite of having a financial link. Some organizations, they are putting the transformation, the personal engagement at the top of the priority because they believe in the consequences. So let's put it this way. If the company is mature enough, maybe they can reduce the link to financial gain, because at the end of the day, value creation, continuous improvement is the key. And what they are doing is creating transformation departments. There was a report from McKinsey approximately 1 year ago, advocating for the CTO or the Chief Transformation Officer that would not have any metric related to money. And we can. Is this right? Is this wrong? Some organizations are doing it with a great success.
Okay, it's proper. Well, I learned from Paul O'Neill. He was the former CEO of Alcoa. Some people might know him, and he said, if it's a department, you probably have a problem.
Yeah.
So that's with a CTO and a CHO, a Chief Happiness Officer. These roles, these are invented the moment you find this problem in your organization. So as soon as somebody proposes to have a safety department, then you better watch out, because that means that probably safety is a big issue. And the same might go for a Chief Transformation Officer. That means that the organization had a lot of trouble transforming, and then they want to make somebody responsible for that, which is the opposite of what they need to transform. So that's what I'm just thinking.
Yeah. No, it's
but all of marketing and sales and HR, yes, that's right. So because these are that's because most organizations do have I call it silos of functional processes. So you do marketing, you do sales, and then you produce it, and then you distribute it through your supply chain. And then you need to hire manage people to do that, and then you have an HR department, and that's So that's indeed very traditional. Yeah, Maria, I agree totally with that statement. And so I think that, in my opinion, the organization and changing the structure or having new roles, etc., is the last thing you should do. You should start at the other end, and that's defining value. So what's the value of your company? And then judging that value compared to what you're actually doing. So if the value is to have somebody corona tested, or the value is that they know whether they have corona or not, that might be the value, then you can judge everything you do in the organization. Does it contribute to the fact that somebody knows whether they have corona or not? And then you might find a lot of work done that not contributes to the actual value. And each department should at least know how they contribute to getting these corona patients know that they have it or not. So that's how I would approach it. What are you thinking? Because you're smiling, but so what's going on in your head?
When I'm thinking, it's good, and then I smile.
Yeah,
I think we are now touching another kind of it could be another discussion, another conference, which is the organization. And we were just, Maria saying, is traditional. Yeah, there is different models of organizing things. As the companies grow bigger, they try to answer the silo problem with a matricial organization, which is probably square root of silo in many cases.
Yeah.
So the problem is not exactly being addressed. And at the same time, there is the new way of the agile. And there are some examples on the technology especially, but not only, with this more less hierarchical and value-oriented streams of work and the agile design of work, which is working well in specific concepts. But as the company grows, as you were saying, it's so many people.
It's getting more difficult. Yes, it gets more difficult.
And then
yes,
it's still a problem that needs to be solved. And I think it's our role as leaders to continuously, as you said, continuously improve. and accept that there will be no perfection, but
Yes.
that's the goal, and that keeps us waking up every day.
Yeah. So thank you. So maybe to restart, because the problem's getting bigger and bigger, because now we want to change the organization. So maybe you can make it smaller. I'm going to have the next discussion question in the chat. And as I ask from you, I will also do. It's all in capitals, so we know it's a question. Please answer for you, maybe just for you personally. What is the biggest obstacle you experience for you to get better? So maybe you have a dream job you want to get into, or maybe you have an assignment from your boss to improve the efficiency or change something. But what is in your way so you cannot get better, or because you didn't figure it out? Or I'm very curious. So please type whatever obstacle you are experiencing. So, and if you rather have us two talking, because you're like our interaction, then you might as well write that in the chat. And make sure that the chat is selected on session and not event, because otherwise we cannot see it, but everybody else in the event can. So they might be a bit confused then if you do that. So make sure that you click on the tab of chat, that the chat is selected on session, and that in that chat you tell us what your obstacle is, or if you prefer us just to continue our interaction, we can do either way, but we have more fun if more people are involved. So. So either the obstacles are very long because there's still not something coming, or well, let's continue. Timoteo, what's a question that you have, or something that you? What's the thing you need the most help with? Or are you figuring out everything you're on your own? What?
Oh no, it's a very good question. I was trying to think in terms of the answer, in terms of the question you asked previously.
Yeah.
But
okay,
I think it's also interesting to explore this from a personal approach.
Okay. Go ahead.
And yeah, sometimes, and I'm sure many of us have experienced that we are trying to implement a change or a new concept in the professional side, but we are not looking at all the other aspects of life, and they play a role.
Exactly.
And they in turn they influence positively what we were trying to achieve in the first place.
Exactly.
At least I have experienced it.
Yeah, I see even worse. I see that people postpone getting what they want in their daily life, so they can achieve what they want in their work life. So, and they start and they become either a workaholic, or they take 2-3 jobs and are never at home, or maybe they getting they're in the office, so they don't move the exercise much, so their health is suffering. And I found out that there's ways to integrate everything you need in life in one plan. So for everybody who's wanting to achieve a goal, no matter which goal, make sure that in your plan, everything is there you need to be successful. And that means that consider your daily life. What are your routines? What do you eat? Consider your health, your mental health as well, or your spirituality even. And all those aspects need to have a place in your plan. So you're sure that you're balanced all the time. And balance doesn't mean that your life is going like this. Balance means that you give attention to something and that you're fully present for that subject, either your family or your work or your sports, and that you let it go, and then you take the next, and you counterbalance everything you need in life. That's what I have experienced worked very well. So working on your health is good for your work performance. Taking time for family is good for work performance. Engagement in your work, so not just let anybody tell you what to do, but to have your own opinion about things, increases productivity by 42%. So if you know a way to engage your colleagues in the things you like to achieve, you might get surprised by the results you get. So that's what would be my perspective on how you get more personal when trying to get better results.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good comment and important, especially for, let's say, experienced professionals that are probably leading bigger scale, bigger teams, bigger problems. Then it's not only about your,
your target,
your brilliant, capability or skills on solving the specific problem, but rather to unleash the organization to support you and do it.
Okay, great.
And how can you motivate your teams if you are having problems at home, or if you are not sleeping well, and if you exercise, you sleep better, for example. So it's everything connected.
Okay, great. So it's almost 4:30, and I want to maybe hand over the responsibility for what happens the coming half hour to our audience. So please tell us in the chat what you like to happen right now. Do we finish the session and we go networking or to the exhibition element? Do you want us to continue just interviewing each other? Or do you want to have a group discussion? Just if you could please tell us in the chat what maybe you can type one is stop. And we can do 2, that is continue as a duo. And 3 is group discussion. So please let me know what you would prefer us to do. We can go either way, but we want it to be the best thing we can do for you, because we discussed that value is the most important thing. So please tell us what would be of value. Maria wants to join the majority. Okay. Well, the majority is me and Timoteo currently, so we can do whatever we like. So maybe there's nobody there. The counter is just missed. So, as nobody is really asking us anything, what do you like to do, Timoteo? Is there something you would like to discuss with me and Maria? Because she seems the only one who's willing to give her opinion. Yeah. Or what's your where you're at?
I think we could strike a balance here.
Okay.
Between
so Maria's already thanking us very much. Thank you very much. You too for your input.
So I'm not sure I'm seeing the entire chat. The last message I saw is from you. You are doing great, and before that is thank you. It was very insightful from Maria. Is that do you have access to more messages, or no?
There's only messages from Maria, okay. And there's one from
Peter.
You, and there's one for Peter.
Okay.
And then after that, it's so Maria, thank you. Also, I'm not sure whether you're already left, but great meeting you. And I think she's right. She says she would not ask us to continue. So I hope that you got out of it something that you can take home. I will have just one more question. I will share my screen so I can at least thank you for your time and for staying with us. I enjoyed it very much, and I hope you had some things to learn. If you like to connect with me, you could do so on LinkedIn. Just type in my name. There's nobody else with that name, I believe. And Maria will send us invites. Oh, that's great. Thank you. And you can also email us at either arnout@theleanmentor.com or Timoteo Guimaraes at unilabs.com. So thank you so much for your attention. It has been great. We propose to now end this session. If you like to stay here for what reason ever, you can, because the room will stay open. But the session will be cancelled just now. Is there something you like to say, Timoteo, just to finish it off?
Just for my message is thank you all. Thank you, Arno, for being part of and moderating the discussion in the room. Thank you very much for that. I'm in a similar position as Arno, so there will be probably no one with my name. So it will be very easy to find me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to invite me at any time. We are, I think, both of us, we are able to continue the discussion perhaps separately through LinkedIn. So please feel free to reach out and discuss as you see fit. So thanks again.
Okay, goodbye to you, goodbye. Maria. Okay, so, and if anybody wants to have a one-on-one because they prefer that, I will be in the networking area for some time just to try it out and see who I can meet. If not, I wish you all the best. Have a nice evening, and I hope you enjoyed our session very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.